The day her stepmother abandoned her at her father's grave, 7-year-old Maya Schultz learned that love was a luxury some children couldn't afford. It started with wilted daisies, her father's favorite flowers, now browning at the edges in her small fist. Maya knelt beside the fresh headstone, her knees sinking into earth that still smelled of rain and grief. The carved letters read, "David Schultz, beloved father." But Maya couldn't read them yet. She only knew this gray stone marked where her daddy would sleep forever. "I brought your flowers, Daddy," she whispered, pressing the drooping bouquet against cold marble. "From our garden, the ones we planted together." Behind her, Victoria Schultz paced like a caged animal, her designer heels clicking against wet pavement. She'd been checking her phone obsessively since they'd arrived, her movements sharp with barely contained panic. Maya didn't understand the hushed phone calls that had been happening all week, or why Victoria's friends had stopped coming to the house after the funeral. What Maya didn't know was that Victoria's world was collapsing as surely as her own. David's gambling debts, Victoria thought, watching the child she'd never wanted to raise. 50,000 to Tony Marcelli, another 30 to the underground poker ring downtown, and now they're calling, wanting their money from a dead man's widow. Victoria's hands shook as she lit another cigarette. She'd already sold David's car, his watch, emptied their joint savings account. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. And she knew what happened to people who couldn't pay Tony Marcelli. But there was one asset left. One David had hidden from her until his deathbed confession. "Maya, it's time to go," Victoria called, her voice cracking despite her effort to sound normal. Maya pressed her palm against the headstone, feeling its icy surface. "Can we stay a little longer, please? I want to tell him about the butterfly." "We're leaving, now." Victoria's guilt twisted deeper as Maya's face crumpled. She looked so much like him, Victoria thought. Those same trusting eyes that believed every lie David ever told. The 7-year-old obeyed, the way her father had taught her. She kissed her fingertips, pressed them to the stone. "I'll come back tomorrow, Daddy. I promise." "No, you won't," Victoria thought, her chest tight with self-loathing. "Because after today, you'll never see this place again." Victoria's grip on Maya's shoulder was desperate. Not gentle. The grip of a woman drowning who'd found a life preserver she was about to throw away. They walked to the black sedan in silence, Maya's small shoes squelching through puddles that reflected the gray October sky. The drive to Riverside Children's Home felt like a funeral procession. Maya counted red cars to keep from crying while Victoria's mind raced through justifications. "She'll be better off. Foster families will love her. I can't protect her from David's debts." But the truth was simpler and more damning. Victoria was choosing her own survival over a child's. This story of betrayal and abandonment is just beginning, and the shocking reunion that happens 18 years later will leave you speechless. But first, you need to understand how deep this betrayal goes. They stopped in front of a gray concrete building with barred windows. Maya had never seen it before, but something about its institutional sadness made her stomach clench. "Where are we?" Maya asked, her voice small. Victoria turned in her seat, removing her sunglasses for the first time that day. Her eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. "This is where you're going to stay for a while." "Stay? But I want to go home." "Maya," Victoria's voice broke. "Your father had debts, dangerous people. I can't keep you safe." It was partly true, which made the lie easier to tell. Maya's world tilted. "But you're my mommy now. Daddy said you'd take care of me." "I'm not your mother. I never was your mother." The words hit Maya like physical blows. Victoria opened the car door, and cold October air rushed in, carrying the scent of dying leaves and distant rain. "Do it fast," Victoria told herself, like pulling off a bandage. She walked Maya to the building entrance where Mrs. Patterson from Child Services waited with a clipboard and practiced sympathy. Papers were signed. An envelope of cash changed hands, the life insurance money David had left for Maya's care, now funding her abandonment. Victoria returned to the car, where Maya sat frozen in the back seat, still clutching her father's photograph. "Will you visit me?" Maya asked as Victoria opened the car door. Victoria's mask finally slipped completely. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry. but this is how it has to be. Maya climbed out on shaking legs. When can I come home? Victoria couldn't answer. She got back in the car, her hands trembling as she started the engine. Maya pressed her small palms against the passenger window, leaving foggy handprints that would haunt Victoria's dreams for years. Wait! Maya ran after the car as it pulled away. Victoria! I'll be good! I promise I'll be good! But the black sedan disappeared around the corner, taking with it the last connection to Maya's childhood. She stood alone on the sidewalk, 7 years old and abandoned, watching the taillights fade into gray afternoon shadows. Mrs. Patterson gently took Maya's hand. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you inside. Maya looked back once at the empty street, hoping Victoria would change her mind, that her daddy would appear and make everything right. But the street remained empty, and Maya Schultz walked into 18 years of foster homes, broken promises, and loneliness so deep it would redefine survival itself. What Maya couldn't know was that 300 miles away, another woman was frantically calling police stations and hiring investigators, searching for a 7-year-old girl with dark hair and sad eyes. A girl who had vanished without a trace the day her father was buried. A girl whose real mother had been searching for 7 years, and would search for 11 more. Victoria Schultz had stolen more than a child's security that day. She had stolen a mother's daughter. And someday, that debt would come due. 18 years. Maya counted them in scars, some visible, most buried so deep they'd become part of her skeleton. At 25, she sat in her studio apartment, staring at the only photograph that had survived every placement, every move, every fresh abandonment. Her father smiled back at her from the cracked frame, his arm around a 7-year-old girl who still believed love was permanent. Maya's phone buzzed with another rejection email. We regret to inform you. The words blurred together. It didn't matter that she'd graduated with honors while working 3 jobs. What mattered was the void where references should be, the gaps where family should exist. Between age 7 to 8, Riverside Children's Home. The first lesson came within hours of Victoria's taillights disappearing. Maya had pressed her face against the dormitory window, watching the parking lot, convinced Victoria would return. Mrs. Patterson found her there at midnight, still in her funeral dress, still clutching wilted daisies. She's not coming back, sweetheart, Mrs. Patterson said gently. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt children. Maya had screamed then, a sound that came from somewhere deeper than her lungs, deeper than her heart. She'd screamed until her throat was raw, until the other children covered their ears, until the night supervisor gave her medicine that made everything fuzzy. The dormitory held 12 beds, 12 children who'd learned that hope was a luxury they couldn't afford. Maya's bed was third from the window. She memorized every crack in the ceiling above it during the nights she couldn't sleep, when the sounds of crying echoed off institutional walls. For 8 months, Maya refused to speak. Social workers came and went, their clipboards full of theories about selective mutism and trauma response. Maya heard them through the glass office walls, discussing her like a broken toy that might be fixable with enough patience. Between age 12 to 13, the Hendricks family. Hope came disguised as a suburban house with a white picket fence. Frank and Margaret Hendricks had kind eyes and soft voices during the placement interview. They spoke of wanting to help a special child and gave Maya her own room with yellow walls and a stuffed elephant on the bed. For 3 weeks, Maya believed she'd found home. Margaret packed lunches with handwritten notes. Frank helped with homework at the kitchen table. Maya even started calling them Mom and Dad, the words tasting like honey after years of silence. The illusion shattered the day Maya accidentally broke Margaret's china teacup. You ungrateful little brat! Margaret's mask slipped completely, revealing the fury beneath. Do you know how much we're sacrificing to keep you here? The least you could do is be careful. Maya cowered as Margaret's hand connected with her cheek, the sound echoing through the kitchen like a gunshot. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional betrayal. She'd trusted again. She'd believed again. The rules appeared overnight, posted on Maya's bedroom door like a prison sentence. Meals must be earned through chores. Speaking at dinner requires permission. Room inspections at 6 a.m. sharp. Mistakes result in privilege removal. Maya learned to move like a ghost through the house, completing endless tasks for the right to exist. When she found Margaret going through her few possessions, including her father's photograph, Maya felt something inside her break permanently. "This is mine," Maya whispered, clutching the picture. "Nothing in this house belongs to you," Margaret replied coldly. "You're here on our charity." Maya ran that night, walking 12 miles in freezing rain before police found her sleeping in a McDonald's restroom. She never saw the Hendricks again, but she carried Margaret's words like shrapnel in her chest. "You're here on charity." Between age 16 to 17, the Peterson placement. By 16, Maya had perfected the art of invisibility. She'd learned which smiles were real, which promises would break, which adults saw her as a problem to manage rather than a person to love. She thought she was prepared for anything. She wasn't prepared for the way Robert Peterson looked at her during the placement interview, his eyes lingering too long on her developing figure, his hand resting on her shoulder with unnecessary familiarity. Maya's social worker, Ms. Rodriguez, seemed oblivious to the undercurrents. "Mr. Peterson has experience with teenage girls," she said cheerfully. "His own daughters are grown and married." Maya wanted to scream that something felt wrong, but who would listen? She was just another foster kid with behavioral issues and a history of running away. Her instincts were dismissed as trauma responses, her fears labeled as adjustment difficulties. The Peterson house was neat and quiet. Too quiet. Maya's room was in the basement, separated from the main house by a heavy door that Mr. Peterson claimed was for privacy. Within days, Maya understood the real meaning of that privacy. Late-night visits that started with checking on her and ended with Maya barricading her door with furniture. Comments about her appearance that made her skin crawl. Accidental touches that weren't accidental at all. Maya lasted 6 weeks before desperation overcame fear. She ran on a Tuesday night, taking nothing but the clothes on her back and her father's photograph. This time, she made it 3 states away before exhaustion and hunger forced her to call the runaway hotline. "Another placement disruption," the caseworker noted clinically. "We'll need to consider therapeutic boarding facilities." Maya said nothing. She'd learned that truth was another luxury foster kids couldn't afford. At age 18, aging out freedom came on Maya's 18th birthday, in the form of a manila envelope and a handshake. The group home director smiled encouragingly while handing her $500 in transition funds and a list of resources for independent living. Maya stood on the sidewalk with a garbage bag full of possessions, watching other residents wave goodbye from windows. For a moment, she felt something like hope. She was free. She belonged to herself now. College became her obsession, her pathway to normal. Maya worked triple shifts at a gas station, lived in a basement that flooded when it rained, survived on day-old bread and canned soup. But she was building something that no one could take away. An education, a future, a chance. For 4 years, hope felt sustainable. Professors who saw potential, classmates who didn't know her history, the possibility of becoming someone other than the abandoned girl from the children's home. Between age 22 to 25, the real world. Graduation day should have been triumph. Maya walked across the stage with no family cheering, but with pride burning in her chest. She'd done the impossible, survived and succeeded against every odd. The job market thought differently. Every interview became an interrogation. Where are your references? Who can vouch for your character? What's your emergency contact? Maya learned to lie by omission, to smile when employers asked about family traditions, to deflect questions about her support system. But the truth had weight, and it sank her applications like stones in deep water. The closest she'd come to belonging was Mrs. Kim's restaurant. For 11 months, Maya felt something like safety in the warm kitchen that smelled of ginger and hope. Mrs. Kim wrapped leftover food without being asked, slipped Maya extra shifts when rent was due, never pried about her past. When Mrs. Kim announced she was selling the restaurant, Maya felt the familiar ache of impending loss. "I wish I could keep you on," Mrs. Kim said, tears in her eyes. "You're like the daughter I never had time to know." Like a daughter. The words followed Maya home, echoing in her empty apartment. Now, surrounded by rejection letters and the weight of another day survived, Maya wondered if Victoria Schultz ever thought about the 7-year-old girl she'd discarded. If she remembered Maya's small hands pressed against car windows, believing until the last second that love was stronger than convenience. Maya had searched for Victoria obsessively: social media, public records, alumni databases, chasing shadows of the woman who'd chosen abandonment over responsibility. But Victoria had vanished completely, leaving no trail for the daughter she'd discarded. Sometimes Maya wondered if she carried some invisible mark that warned people away, some fundamental flaw that made abandonment inevitable. The thought was poison, but it lived in her bones, whispering that maybe solitude was her destiny. But Maya Schultz had inherited more than abandonment from her childhood. She'd inherited her father's stubborn refusal to surrender, his belief that tomorrow might be different than today. She'd survived 18 years of being unwanted, earned a degree no one could steal, built a life from nothing but determination and borrowed hope. What she didn't know was that 300 miles away, a woman stared at the same photograph Maya treasured: a father and daughter planting daisies in a garden that no longer existed. That woman had just received a phone call that would change everything. We found her. Elena Rodriguez had never stopped searching for the daughter stolen from her arms, and Maya's long exile was finally about to end. Maya was wiping down tables at Joe's diner when she noticed the woman watching her from across the street. For 20 minutes, the elegant figure had stood motionless beside a sleek black car, her hands pressed against her chest as if trying to keep her heart from escaping. Maya's survival instincts, honed by 18 years of unwanted attention, prickled with unease. The woman wasn't a customer. Maya recognized the expensive gray suit, the careful composure of someone who commanded boardrooms and controlled millions. People like that didn't eat at Joe's diner unless something was desperately wrong. When the woman finally crossed the street, Maya could see her trembling hands through the grease-stained window. The stranger paused at the door, closing her eyes and taking several deep breaths before pushing it open. The bell chimed, and Maya automatically reached for a menu. "Welcome to Joe's, you can—" The woman's intake of breath cut through Maya's practiced greeting like a knife. Maya looked up to find dark eyes fixed on her face with an intensity that made her step backward. The stranger's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the tears beginning to spill over, and her hands shook as she gripped the doorframe for support. "Excuse me," Maya said carefully. "Are you all right?" "Maya." The word escaped the woman's lips like a prayer answered. "Oh my God, it's really you." Maya's blood chilled. She'd learned long ago that strangers who knew her name rarely brought good news. Her hand moved instinctively toward the kitchen, calculating escape routes. "I think you have me confused with someone else," Maya said, her voice steady despite the alarm bells screaming in her head. The woman took a tentative step forward, pulling out her phone with trembling fingers. "You have his nose, David's nose, and his hands, those long fingers that were always so gentle." Her voice broke completely. "You look exactly like I imagined you would." Maya's world began to tilt. The only David she'd known was her father, and he'd been dead for 18 years. "I'm sorry, but I really don't. Please." The woman held out her phone, the screen showing a photograph that made Maya's knees buckle. "Is this you?" Maya stared at the image, her hands gripping the counter for support. The photograph showed a younger version of her father lifting a laughing toddler toward an apple tree. Maya remembered that day, the warmth of autumn sun on her face, the taste of fresh cider on her tongue, the feeling of complete safety in her father's arms. "Where did you get this?" Maya whispered. "I took it." The woman's voice was steadier now, strengthened by years of practiced control. "October 12th, 3 months before you turned 3, in the backyard of our house on Maple Street." Maya's vision blurred. No one else should have that photograph. No one else should know about the house with the yellow kitchen where she'd been happy once upon a time. "My name is Elena Rodriguez," the woman continued, stepping closer. "And Maya, I'm your mother." The words hit Maya like physical blows. Her father had told her about her mother, a woman who'd left when Maya was too young to remember, who'd chosen freedom over responsibility, who'd never looked back. But this woman spoke with the authority of someone who'd lived those memories, who'd been present for moments Maya had thought were lost forever. "That's impossible," Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. "My mother abandoned me when I was a baby." Elena's face twisted with pain. "I never abandoned you, sweetheart. You were stolen from me." Joe emerged from the kitchen, his face creased with concern. "Maya? Everything okay out here?" Maya looked between Joe and Elena, her mind struggling to process information that felt too large to contain. I need a few minutes." 15 minutes later, Maya sat in Elena's car, surrounded by leather seats that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. Elena had spread a collection of documents across the dashboard: photographs, legal papers, and what looked like private investigator reports. Maya picked up one photograph, her breath catching. It showed her as a baby, maybe 6 months old, sleeping in the arms of the woman sitting beside her. Elena's face was younger, but unmistakable, glowing with the kind of love Maya had spent her entire life searching for. "Your father wasn't the man you remember," Elena said softly. "David had a gambling addiction that destroyed everything we'd built together." Maya's hands tightened on the photograph. "He never gambled. He worked construction, read me bedtime stories. He did those things too." Elena's voice was gentle but firm. "People can be complicated, Maya. David loved you desperately, but he also made choices that put you in danger." Elena pulled out a legal document, papers Maya couldn't fully understand, but recognized as official. "When the gambling debts became life-threatening, I filed for divorce and full custody. David was supposed to bring you for supervised visits." Elena's voice broke. "He brought you for a visit 3 days before the final custody hearing and never brought you back." Maya stared at the divorce decree, trying to reconcile this version of events with the stories her father had told. "He kidnapped me?" "I searched everywhere." Elena's composure cracked, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Police, FBI, private investigators. I hired psychics, followed false leads across 3 countries, spent every penny I had offering rewards, but you'd vanished like you'd never existed." The car felt too small, the air too thin. Maya rolled down the window, gulping oxygen as her worldview rearranged itself into new, impossible shapes. "Victoria Schultz," Elena continued, "was David's girlfriend. She helped him create false identities, forged documents. When David got sick and knew he was dying, he probably told her the truth about who you really were." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "So she abandoned me because she knew I was looking for you. She panicked and chose the cruelest solution, dumping you in the foster system under a false identity where I'd never find you." The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity: Victoria's desperate behavior at the cemetery, her guilt-ridden face, the way she'd kept checking her mirrors as they drove away. She hadn't abandoned Maya out of simple cruelty, she'd abandoned her out of terror. Maya pulled out her wallet, withdrawing the photograph she'd carried for 18 years. Her father smiled back at her, his arm around a 7-year-old girl who still believed love was permanent. She handed it to Elena, watching fresh tears spill down the older woman's cheeks. "I kept this," Maya said quietly. "It's the only proof I had that I was ever loved." Elena cradled the photograph like precious metal. "I have the same one. Different angle, same moment." She pulled out another picture, this one showing Maya and David from behind, Maya pointing at something in the distance while David crouched beside her. "I've been carrying your pictures for 18 years, Elena whispered, "showing them to every investigator, every police officer, every person who might help me find you." Maya felt something cracking open in her chest, a wall she'd built to protect herself from hope. "You never stopped looking?" "Never. I built Rodriguez Industries so I'd have the resources to search anywhere, hire anyone, follow any lead no matter how unlikely." Elena's voice strengthened. "Every success I achieved, every dollar I earned, it was all to bring you home." Maya stared at this woman who claimed to be her mother, trying to process the magnitude of what she was hearing. Elena Rodriguez wasn't just wealthy, she was one of the most powerful business people in the country, and she'd built that empire while searching for a lost daughter. "Why now?" Maya asked. "What changed?" Elena hesitated, And in that pause, Maya's foster care trained instincts detected something hidden. New facial recognition technology. My investigators got a hit from a security camera outside your community college. It took them 2 years to track you here. The explanation felt incomplete, but before Maya could probe deeper, Elena continued. Maya, I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I need you to understand. I've thought about you every single day for 18 years. I've wondered what you looked like, what made you laugh, whether you were safe and happy and loved. Maya's voice was thick with emotion she didn't know how to process. I wasn't safe or happy or loved. Elena's face crumpled. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you, couldn't find you sooner, couldn't save you from all those years alone. Maya felt tears threatening, the first real tears she'd allowed herself in years. This woman, this stranger who might be her mother, was offering everything Maya had ever wanted: belonging, explanation, love without conditions. But 18 years of abandonment had taught Maya that hope was dangerous, that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. I need time, Maya said finally. This is too much, too fast. Elena nodded, pulling out a business card with hands that still trembled. Of course, but Maya, please don't disappear. I've lost you once. I can't survive losing you again. As Maya walked back into Joe's diner, she felt the weight of possibility pressing against her chest. For 18 years, she'd believed she was unwanted, unloved, destined for solitude. Now, a woman who might be her mother was offering her a place in a world Maya had never imagined belonging to. The question was whether Maya could risk believing in love again, or whether Elena Rodriguez was just another beautiful lie waiting to shatter. Maya sat in Elena Rodriguez's penthouse office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that transformed the city below into an abstract painting of light and shadow. 3 days had passed since their meeting at the diner. 3 days of phone calls, legal documents, and a DNA test that had shattered every assumption Maya had carried about her identity. Elena Rodriguez was indeed her mother. The woman who'd built a tech empire from nothing had spent 18 years searching for the daughter stolen from her arms. But with that confirmation came questions that twisted Maya's stomach into knots. The investigation files, Maya said, gesturing to the thick folders spread across Elena's mahogany desk. How did you get all this information about Victoria? Elena poured coffee from a service that probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary. I've employed a team of private investigators for nearly 2 decades, not to spy, but to locate and document. Everything they've gathered is legal: public records, social media analysis, financial documentation obtained through proper channels. Maya opened one of the folders, scanning credit reports, property records, and what appeared to be social media screenshots. This is incredibly thorough. When you have unlimited resources and unlimited motivation, Elena said carefully, you learn to be thorough. She moved to the window, her reflection ghost-like against the glass. But Maya, I need you to understand something. I didn't just build this empire to find you. I built it to protect you when I did. Something in her mother's tone made Maya look up. Protect me from what? Elena turned, her expression guarded. From people like Victoria Schultz. From anyone who thinks they can hurt a Rodriguez and walk away unscathed. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the office's air conditioning. You're planning something. I'm planning justice. Elena returned to her desk, pulling out a manila envelope Maya hadn't noticed before. Victoria Schultz has been living in Scottsdale for 15 years, married to Robert Morrison, a real estate developer with political ambitions. They're pillars of their community: charity galas, church fundraisers, youth mentorship programs. Maya opened the envelope, finding photographs of Victoria at various social events. Older now, but unmistakably the woman who'd abandoned her. Victoria smiled beside a distinguished man with silver hair, both of them posing with oversized checks for children's charities. Ironic, isn't it? Elena's voice carried a bitter edge. The woman who abandoned a 7-year-old at a cemetery now raises money for orphaned children. Maya studied the photographs. feeling an unexpected complexity of emotions. Anger, yes, but also a strange sadness for the life Victoria had built on a foundation of lies. What exactly are you planning to do? Maya asked. Elena sat across from her, leaning forward with an intensity that made Maya's pulse quicken. Robert Morrison is running for city council on a family values platform. His campaign emphasizes moral character, protection of children, traditional family structures. His wife's past, abandoning a child, stealing insurance money, enabling kidnapping, would destroy not just his political aspirations, but his entire public persona. Maya's hands tightened on the photographs. You want to expose her. I want her to face consequences. Elena's voice was steady, controlled. For 18 years, Victoria has lived comfortably while you suffered. She's never been held accountable, never faced judgment for what she did. Maya stood, moving to the window where Elena had been standing. The city spread below them like a chessboard, and Maya felt for the first time like she might be one of the players instead of a piece being moved around. Why do you need me? Maya asked. You have the resources, the information, the power to destroy her without my involvement. Elena joined her at the window. Because revenge without justice is just cruelty, and justice requires that the victim have a voice in how it's served. Maya turned to study her mother's profile. Elena Rodriguez commanded boardrooms, controlled millions of dollars, could probably end careers with a single phone call. But she was asking for permission from the daughter who'd been abandoned in a foster care system. There's something else, Maya said slowly. Something you're not telling me. Elena's reflection in the window flickered with what might have been guilt. You're very perceptive. 18 years of foster care teaches you to read people. Elena was quiet for a long moment. When my investigators finally located you 2 years ago, I wanted to approach you immediately, but my lawyers advised caution. Victoria could claim I was harassing her, could disappear again, could take legal action that might complicate any future reunion. Maya's breath caught. You've known where I was for 2 years? I've known, but I couldn't act without risking losing you again. Elena's voice was thick with emotion. So I waited. I had you monitored, not invasively, but enough to ensure your safety, to know if you needed help. I've been living in hell, knowing my daughter was struggling while I had the power to help, but couldn't risk approaching you. Maya felt her worldview rearranging itself again. You could have helped. You watched me work 3 jobs, live in that basement apartment, get rejected from job after job, and you did nothing? I couldn't risk it. Elena's composure cracked. If I'd approached you and Victoria had found out, she might have convinced you I was dangerous, unstable. She might have succeeded in keeping us apart forever. Maya moved away from the window, her mind racing. So this isn't just about revenge. It's about making sure Victoria can never interfere with our relationship again. It's about closing the door on the past so we can build a future. Elena's voice strengthened. Victoria Schultz stole 18 years from both of us. She's the reason you grew up believing you were unwanted. The reason I spent 2 decades searching for my own daughter. She profited from our pain and never looked back. Maya sat back down, studying the photographs of Victoria's comfortable life. For the first time since learning her true identity, she felt something shift inside her. A spark of the anger Elena had been carrying for so long. What would you do to her? Maya asked quietly. Elena pulled out her phone, scrolling to what appeared to be a draft press release. Robert Morrison's political opponents would be very interested to learn about his wife's history. Local news stations love stories about moral hypocrisy. The charities they support might want to distance themselves from someone who abandoned a child. Maya read the draft, her pulse quickening. It was thorough, devastating, and completely factual. Victoria's world would implode within hours of its release. She'd lose everything, Maya said. The way you lost everything when she drove away from that cemetery. Elena's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. The way I lost everything when my daughter disappeared. Maya stared at the press release, understanding that she was at a crossroads that would define not just her relationship with her mother, but the kind of person she would become. She could embrace Elena's world of power and calculated justice, or she could choose a different path. Before we do this, Maya said slowly, I want to see her first. Elena raised an eyebrow. See Victoria? Why? Because I've been carrying a 7-year-old girl's questions for 18 years. Why did she leave me? Did she ever think about me? Does she regret what she did? Maya met her mother's gaze. Before we destroy her life, I want answers. Elena studied her daughter's face, seeing something there that gave her pause. And if her answers don't satisfy you? Maya felt something crystallizing inside her, not quite Elena's cold fury, but a determination that was entirely her own. Then we'll discuss what justice looks like. Elena smiled for the first time since Maya had arrived. That's my daughter. You're learning to think like a Rodriguez. As they prepared to leave the office, Maya caught her reflection in the window. She looked different somehow. Straighter posture, steadier gaze, the bearing of someone who was finally claiming her place in the world. Victoria Schultz was about to discover that some ghosts from the past came back with more than just memories. They came back with the power to rewrite the ending. Victoria Schultz was arranging white roses on Robert's mother's grave when she felt eyes watching her. The Scottsdale Memorial Cemetery was nearly empty at sunset, just her and the groundskeeper closing up for the evening. She'd come here every month for 10 years, maintaining the appearance of a devoted daughter-in-law, never once thinking about another cemetery 3 states away. When she turned, her hands went numb. Maya Rodriguez stood 20 feet away beside a black sedan, no longer the terrified 7-year-old who'd pressed small palms against car windows. She was elegant now, composed in a way that spoke of newfound power, wearing a dress that cost more than Victoria's monthly mortgage. But those eyes, David's eyes, held 18 years of accumulated questions. Hello, Victoria, Maya said, walking closer with measured steps. We need to talk. Victoria's breath caught. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not now, not when her life was finally stable and secure. I don't know what you want, but I want answers. Maya stopped just out of arm's reach. Starting with why you chose this cemetery to abandon me 18 years ago. The roses scattered from Victoria's nerveless fingers. You're mistaken. I don't know what you're talking about. Maya pulled out her phone, showing Victoria a photograph that made the older woman's knees buckle. Surveillance footage of Victoria's car in this very cemetery parking lot, October 15th, 18 years ago. My mother has been very thorough, Maya said calmly. Elena Rodriguez. Perhaps you remember her, the woman whose daughter you helped kidnap? Victoria gripped the headstone for support. Your father told me your mother abandoned you, that she didn't want... Lie. Maya's voice cut through the evening air like glass. Try again. Victoria's mind raced, searching for explanations that might salvage this situation. Maya, you have to understand. I was young. I was scared. Your father owed dangerous people money. I couldn't protect you from... From what? From my own mother who spent 18 years searching for me? Maya stepped closer, and Victoria could see Elena Rodriguez's cold intelligence burning behind David's gentle eyes. From the woman who built a billion-dollar empire just to have the resources to find her stolen daughter? I saved your life, Victoria's voice cracked with desperation. Those men David owed money to, they would have hurt you to get to him. I got you away from all that. You got me away from my mother and threw me into foster care. Maya's composure never wavered, but Victoria could hear the fury underneath, controlled and devastating. You took David's life insurance money, money meant for my care, and used it to start your new life in Arizona. Victoria backed away, her heel catching on the cemetery's gravel path. I couldn't take care of you. I wasn't your real mother. No, you weren't. Maya's smile was cold as winter stars. But you knew where my real mother was, didn't you? You could have called Elena, returned me safely. Instead, you chose abandonment because it was easier than facing consequences. Victoria looked around wildly, hoping for witnesses, for help, for any escape from this nightmare. What do you want? Money? I can pay you back the insurance money with interest. I want you to feel what I felt. Maya pulled out another photograph. Victoria at a charity gala just last week, smiling beside Robert while accepting an award for their work with disadvantaged children. 18 years of believing I was worthless, unwanted, destined for abandonment. I want you to understand that kind of helplessness. Victoria's survival instincts finally kicked in. She straightened, pulling together the composure that had carried her through 15 years of marriage to Robert Morrison. You can't prove anything. It's your word against mine, and I'll tell everyone you're an unstable young woman trying to extort money from a respected family. Maya laughed, a sound devoid of humor. You really think Elena Rodriguez got to where she is by making threats she can't back up? Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled genuinely for the first time. Perfect timing. That's my mother texting. The press conference starts in 20 minutes. Victoria's blood turned to ice. Press conference? Channel 12 News. They're very interested in the story of Robert Morrison's wife, the woman running on family values while married to someone who abandoned a 7-year-old at a cemetery. Maya scrolled through her phone. Elena has documentation, witness statements from the children's home, financial records showing how you spent my father's insurance money. Victoria grabbed Maya's arm, her fingernails digging into expensive fabric. You can't do this. Robert doesn't know about any of this. He's a good man. He doesn't deserve. Neither did I. Maya removed Victoria's hand with surprising strength. I didn't deserve to spend my 8th birthday crying in a group home. I didn't deserve to age out of foster care with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes. I didn't deserve 18 years of believing my own mother abandoned me. Victoria's mask finally cracked completely. I was 23 years old. David was dead, scary men were calling demanding money, and I was left with a child who wasn't mine. What was I supposed to do? Be better. Maya's voice was quiet, final. Be the kind of person who protects children instead of discarding them. Be the kind of woman who faces consequences instead of creating new victims. Victoria collapsed onto the nearby bench, her carefully maintained composure dissolving into desperate tears. Please, I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but I am sorry. I've thought about you over the years, wondered if you were okay. But you never tried to find out. Maya sat beside her, no longer angry, just infinitely sad. You could have hired investigators, tracked me through the foster system, at least ensured I was safe. Instead, you moved to Arizona and pretended I never existed. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. What happens now? Maya checked her phone again. Now Robert learns who he's really married to. Now your friends at the country club discover what kind of charity work you did as a young woman. Now everyone who trusted you understands what that trust was built on. This will destroy everything, Victoria sobbed. My marriage, my reputation, my entire life. Like mine was destroyed when I was 7 years old, Maya said softly. The difference is, I was innocent. You made choices, Victoria. Terrible choices that hurt a child and broke a mother's heart. Tonight, those choices finally have consequences. Maya stood, smoothing her dress. There's a car waiting to take you home. I suggest you use the drive to figure out how you're going to explain 18 years of lies to your husband. Victoria looked up with red-rimmed eyes. Will Elena stop if I confess publicly? If I admit what I did and apologize? Maya considered this. My mother built her empire on the principle that actions have consequences. She's not interested in apologies, Victoria. She's interested in justice. As Maya walked toward the black sedan, Victoria called after her. You've become just like her, cold and ruthless and… Maya paused, turning back one last time. No, Victoria. I've become someone who refuses to let children suffer for adults' cowardice. There's a difference. 20 minutes later, Maya sat in Elena's penthouse watching the evening news. The reporter stood outside the Morrison campaign headquarters as the story broke across local channels. Robert Morrison's political career was ending before it had truly begun, destroyed not by his own actions, but by the woman he'd married. Elena handed Maya a glass of wine. How do you feel? Maya watched Victoria's photograph fill the screen alongside headlines about abandoned children and stolen insurance money. She waited for satisfaction, for the vindication she'd expected. Instead, she felt only a profound sadness for the waste of it all, the years lost, the pain inflicted, the lives forever altered by one woman's moment of cowardice. I feel free, Maya said finally. For the first time in 18 years. I feel free. On screen, Victoria Schultz Morrison's world collapsed in real time, just as Maya's had at a cemetery gate so many years ago. But this time, the abandoned child had chosen how the story ended. And that, Maya realized, was justice enough. The first month after Victoria's public downfall, Maya couldn't sleep. She'd wake at 3 a.m., expecting to feel triumphant, only to find herself staring at the ceiling, hollow where satisfaction should have been. Elena, meanwhile, threw herself into expanding Rodriguez Industries with a restless energy that spoke of unfinished business. They met for awkward coffee dates, circling each other like strangers who shared DNA, but not history. Elena wanted to give Maya everything: penthouses, cars, designer clothes, while Maya wanted something much harder to provide: a mother who wasn't still burning with 18 years of accumulated rage. The breakthrough came during their fourth month together, when Elena found Maya crying in the Rodriguez Industries lobby after a particularly brutal therapy session. "I keep waiting to feel vindicated," Maya whispered. "Victoria lost everything, just like I did, but I just feel empty." Elena sat beside her daughter on the marble floor, not caring that passing employees stared at the CEO comforting a young woman among the potted plants. "I've been angry for so long," Elena admitted. "I forgot how to be anything else. When David took you, I promised myself I'd make everyone pay. But watching you these past months, I think I was wrong about what justice looks like." 6 months after the charity gala revelation, Maya knelt in the garden behind their restored childhood home, planting daisies where she and her father had once worked together. Elena sat nearby, her expensive suit traded for jeans and dirt-stained gardening gloves. "Victoria called yesterday," Maya said, not looking up from the soil. "She's working at a women's shelter now, helping mothers who've lost their children." Elena's hands stilled on the rosebush she was pruning. "How do you feel about that?" "I think people can change." Maya sat back on her heels, studying the neat rows of flowers they'd planted together. "I think pain can either make us cruel or make us kind. We get to choose." Elena looked at her daughter, really looked at her, seeing not the abandoned child she'd spent 18 years mourning, but the remarkable woman Maya had become despite everything. "I chose cruelty for so long," Elena said softly. "You chose kindness. You're stronger than I ever was." Maya reached for her mother's soil-stained hand. "We both chose survival. Now we're choosing something better." As sunset painted the garden golden, two women sat among flowers that would bloom long after their pain had faded. They'd lost 18 years to other people's choices, but the future, that belonged entirely to them. Have you ever discovered that forgiveness was more powerful than revenge? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes the best healing comes from knowing we're not alone in choosing the harder path. Subscribe for more stories about resilience, justice, and the unbreakable bonds between mothers and daughters, because everyone deserves to find their way home. Maya Rodriguez had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength wasn't in destroying your enemies, it was in refusing to become them.